share live on YouTube.
All right.
And I'm ready.
We will call to order the May 5th Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission special meeting. Jimmy, can we start with roll call?
Terry Steenblock.
Here.
Jason Steenblock.
Here.
Doug Ramseth.
Here.
Tim Gary. Tim Miller.
Here.
Betty Geyer.
Here.
Karen Moorhead.
Here.
Okay, and then looking for a motion and any discussion on approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as set.
Second.
So motion by Karen and approved by, or seconded by Tim. Somebody's walking by. All right. An open forum, I'm assuming we don't have any written in.
Hold on, Terry, just to interrupt, you forgot to vote on that.
Oh, I did? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll do a, go ahead, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Motion's
Sorry.
approved. That's
Completely
okay.
forgot we had to vote on that. All right, and I'm assuming we don't have any written in comments or anything for open forum?
We do not have any comments for open forum.
Okay. So then next on the agenda would be the Arts in the Park discussion. Did you want to touch on your staff memo?
Yeah, so this is our item tonight. It's a regular agenda item. And as provided in the packet tonight, I'll just go over this briefly. At our last Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission meeting on April 21st, we did have a discussion about arts in the park for the upcoming summer. And at that meeting, the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission did table the decisions at that time, requesting some input from City Council and wanted to just wait for a little bit more guidance from Governor Walz. So since then, on Monday, April 27th, the City Council did discuss this at their City Council meeting. It was a discussion item presented to City Council, but generally across the board, council members expressed agreement that the month of June would look very difficult to have, or to have a large group gathering for our Arts in the Park event. And just unanimously had the support if we wanted to move forward with postponing or canceling the month of June. Furthermore, April 30th, Governor Walz did extend the stay-at-home order by 2 weeks. So now that is ending on May 18th. And then we need to know from there what looks next. So with that, I think those were the two items the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission wanted more information on before making a decision on Arts in the Park. So the recommendation at this time is to postpone Arts in the Park for the month of June, and then per City Council to take this in increments as we're able to for further cancellations. I would recommend that we discuss and review this again at our next regular meeting scheduled for May 19th. So with that, looking for any discussion, but ultimately taking action tonight to make that decision on Arts in the Park so we can move forward accordingly with plans.
I have a question.
Sure.
How long does it take for the vendors to be ready? What does it take to pull it together?
That's a good question. Really, we just some paperwork really is all that's required. Some coordinating of logistics. However, I would say with the current situation, working with vendors would likely take additional time. There's likely would be additional requirements that would be set forward. So in a normal year, it would be fairly quick. However, I think that we really need to look at, if we do have vendors at the event, how do we keep them safe? How do we keep the community safe? And what we're seeing with the farmers markets, a lot of communities are putting extra tables in front of the vendor tables. So there's that extra spacing distance. So that would be something that, we'd have to set forward some additional guidelines for vendor participation this year.
that's what I was wondering, just because I'm seeing farmers markets are allowed, and like you said, they're making some different considerations, one-way paths, no eating on premises, that kind of things.
I do think to your question, Betty, that at our next meeting, we should make a decision about vendor participation, whether it's quantity of vendors, if they're, if they're gonna be allowed. I think we should really make some definitive decisions yet this month on that, because even if we would look at a July start date, that would give us a good month to work through some of those logistics of what would be required and get them set up to go. So I think that's an important decision at our next meeting,
Okay.
is the vendor participation piece.
And Madam Chair, we should have more information, being it's after the 18th, that we should have a little more guidance on what the role's going to look like. So by the meeting on the 19th, we should have a little better idea of what we can do.
Terry, you're muted. Terry, you're muted.
Oh, did you hear what I said?
Yes, we heard you, Karen. So Terry.
Okay. Okay.
Just still muted, Terry.
Let me unmute you.
You guys, I do this all day and you think.
I
somehow
know.
I know how to use this, right?
You're all zoomed out.
Okay, we can hear you.
Anyways, the bands that we had scheduled for June, are we able to work with Woody to either put them at the end of the year or carry them over?
Yes, Mr. McBride and I have been in communication, and by this Friday, we will develop a plan for correspondence with any groups we had intended for June. So we will communicate with them to see what their availability would be if we moved to September. One group in particular I think we had set was the Centennial Community Band. And I know June was always, I think, the only month that really worked for them. So we could have a challenge with that. And plus it's a 50 member band in itself. So that's quite a few people, right there. So yes, this Friday by this Friday, we'll have reached out to all of the June performers and see what we can do for the fall if possible. And I could have that information brought back to the Parks Commission at our next meeting.
We haven't ruled out August yet, have we?
Right now, we're just considering the month of June, so nothing has been
Correct.
considered for
Okay.
July or August.
Okay.
So you're looking for a motion to one way or another? Anybody want to make a motion on the June?
I'll move that we cancel the month of June and look at adding that on at the end of the season in September.
And I'll second that.
So just point of clarification, if we look at adding it on to the end of September, do we have to amend that motion again, or would that be if we couldn't do it? Are we okay?
Can you say that again?
So if the motion is to cancel June and look at putting that on to September, if we end up not being able to put it on to September, do we need to have another motion to carry it over? Do we lose flexibility is my point of clarification there.
I think how the motion was stated, it just says look at the end of September, so that I think from Commissioner Ramseth's standpoint is have me look into what availability would be, what could September look like if we are able to. And I think the next meeting would be looking at further action on July and August. Does that seem fair? I think that's what he's looking at, is if September could be an option, what would that potentially look like? I don't think it's committing the Parks Commission to having Arts in the Park in September.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion before Jamie does roll call?
Commissioner Miller?
So, am I, okay, I'm not on mute. I just want to make sure. Have you looked in some other cities? Oftentimes you bring us some information about what other cities are doing. I still am concerned that we're too early and how much we move on this. much like my position before, but do understand the recommendations of council as well. I mean, is this a common occurrence throughout the neighboring cities and that have concert series to cancel through June?
Yeah, I think this is unique in the fact that there's really no one's ever seen this before. And I think communities are faced with pretty difficult decisions on what to do. And I think most recently Stillwater had canceled their Lumberjack Days. They canceled their concert series in Stillwater. Mr. McBride, who works with some communities and neighboring communities, their month of June was also looked at as potentially being postponed and moved to September. Some communities have canceled the whole concert series, and some are just kind of doing this incrementally like we would be at this point in time. So I think the month of June is, I've seen that for the most part, the month of June has been canceled.
So is it-
That's why I checked. That's why I checked on August. I don't want us to be, jumping ahead too far because I'm at the same coin. We may have to do it, but I'm just assuming that we can take it in bits and pieces like we are. So that's probably, a good idea to do it this way.
Yeah, and I think I just learned too that White Bear Market Fest canceled the month of June as well, and that just came out. So I think what this decision is in alignment with what other communities are doing to make sure that it's a safe environment. I think it might just be a little early to be introducing people back in larger groups. And again, with the additional work and restrictions that have to probably be in place, small businesses that are able to open have to do so with a lot of restrictions. And I think that would be the same for us as we're able to have restrictions lifted and be able to run a community event like this. And at this time as well, communication with vendors has pretty much been on hold as we have waited to, till we get to this point to make a decision so we know what to communicate to them. So I think, again, to the point of later this month, hopefully with some more direction from the governor and some more consideration from the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission, I think it's important to really identify what vendor participation is going to look like for this event.
Betty, did you have something you were going to say?
I just wanted to ask a question, kind of more for future. Is it an all or nothing? I mean, would that be what we're talking about next time? We could maybe do the farmer's market part and the crafters part and not do the music series? Are those all things up for consideration, or is it all or nothing?
I think that those are all up for consideration,
Okay.
really, of how, clearly the event's going to look different this year than it's looked before. And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer at this time. I think communities are all doing what we're doing and really just talking about it and trying to figure out different unique avenues to hosting some form of community event. And what does that look like? And how do you do it safely? So I think it's definitely going to look different. And I think that's part of the next piece of this puzzle is what could we still offer? And if we still offer that, how is it done safely?
Okay.
Event.
Thank you.
So yeah, you're welcome.
Any other discussion? Jamie, do you want to do roll call or do you want us to?
I'll just do roll call so it's a little easier. Terry Steenblack,
Aye.
Jason Steenblack,
Aye.
Doug Ramseth,
Aye.
Tim Miller,
Aye.
Betty Geyer,
Aye.
Karen Moorhead.
Aye.
All right. Let's see. So Terry, and that was the last, the only item tonight, just to make that definitive decision. So what the city will do is we'll update our website. I think it's time to start getting out that communication that the decision to postpone or to cancel June of Arts in the Park. So people start knowing what that looks like. Vendors are going to likely have questions about potential involvement in July and August. Our fee schedule is for the season. So again, like I said, we'll really need to talk about that at the next meeting to determine if we have vendors, and if so, what's their fee structure? Is that going to need to change? A lot of little things like that, but I think that's our next step is really figuring that piece out, because a lot of questions will probably arise from that, so.
So then Jamie, for the next meeting, since we know we're gonna have to talk about this, can we make sure we have, whatever the governor's recommendation is? So for example, if he opens things up, what the guidelines are for opening up, and then also, what the CDC guidelines are as well, so we can look at both levels to see what the guidelines are as we look at making our decision.
Yeah, yep, that's not a problem. I would expect he's gonna issue some new executive order prior to our next meeting, and hopefully that outlines some more details. And depending on what comes of that next update, we also have other things to, likely consider as well as it relates to parks and trails and facility use and things like that. So, and just as an aside, I'm currently working on park rangers and staffing. Obviously that's going to look a lot different this year, at this time, at least, just because facilities open, and things like that. So I think there's going to be a lot in the May meeting to talk about parks related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So.
All right, with that, any other discussion or looking for a motion to adjourn?
I just want to say thank you guys for jumping on a quick special meeting. Appreciate your flexibility and willingness to do so. And so thank you for that. And otherwise, I think that's it for me.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
A sec.
So we move by Doug and a second by Jason. Do you want to do roll call or?
Just wait, you can signal by kind of showing the hand or saying aye.
Aye.
To adjourn.
Aye.
And Karen?
Aye. Aye.
Got it.
All right, meeting adjourned.
All right, stay well, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy Cinco de
Bye.
Mayo, and we'll see you soon.